Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I'm Ratwan Hill, and I'm with the nation's leading subject matter expert in government contracting, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Mr. Cotton, how's it going, man?
It's a little bit of a somber day today, Mr. Hill. I got a bit of sad news that my client Zero, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Todd Mulvaney, passed away peacefully in his sleep Sunday night. So I'm mourning the loss of a client and friend.
My condolences and prayers up to their family. There's a lot of stuff. Before I go in there, you brung up this client Zero. Could could you tell me the backstory of how you met this client Zero? Because I know this for him to be a client Zero and you having 19 billion in past performance. I know this is like the tip of the iceberg for you. So could you tell me just like the relationship and how you guys, met initially?
Well, I would like to do that because, in point of fact, there are a lot of people that are enjoying, personal financial freedom through joint venturing. A lot of disabled veterans that are enjoying that in my hallucination would not be enjoying that privilege if it weren't for Todd Mulvaney. Because Todd Mulvaney, my client Zero, when I was this young disabled veteran advocate, he was the first guy that said, yes, I'll give this joint venturing thing that you're talking about a run, Walter. And Todd was able to take a failing disabled veteran business at that time and utilize the joint venturing approach to be the first disabled veteran to bring Johnson products to the GSA schedule and go from a, truly at-risk challenged position to the place where he was able to retire in the style that he desired, the style that he wanted to. I mean, he had made some good money when he sold the business, but he was smart enough to invest some of that money in NVIDIA, the stock that just exploded. Which caused him to make so much more money that when he was planning to complete his bucket list item, which was a world cruise on the Viking Sky, and his wife, Donna, wasn't able to attend, he picked up the phone and called me and said, hey, Walt, you got 4 or 5 months on your hand, and would you like to join me on a cruise around the world? So Todd Mulvaney is a guy that I credit as the first one that took a risk on, the bald guy's, big hairy bald idea. And he's one of the people that completed the cycle, right? I think he's done what every disabled veteran wants to do. You want to take that benefit that you have earned through your sacrifice in the nation and use it to expand the financial foundation for your family, to create generational wealth that you can pass on to other generations. And I'm sure that Donna and Jessica and those are, figuring out, how they're going to take Todd's wealth and liberally share it throughout the family. So without getting too wordy, Todd Mulvaney is one of the unsung heroes in the disabled veteran contracting movement, because I personally believe that if Todd hadn't said yes, the disabled veteran joint venturing wouldn't be as prolific as it is today.
Okay, I did have a question. When you said Johnson, are you referring to Johnson and Johnson or?
Yes, the Johnson and Johnson product line. Yeah, Todd was one of the people. I mean, he intersected the space and built this janitorial products focused company, right? Selling into to the VA, and of course, Johnson and Johnson had a huge inventory of those products, but for whatever reason, no disabled veteran had added the Johnson products to the GSA schedule. So Todd was at the right place at the right time with his relationship, and he was able to do that at a time when the government was trying to usher in this strategic sourcing initiative. And they issued a group of blanket purchase agreements, some to the Ability One community and some to the disabled veteran community. And of course, because of Public Law 109461, the disabled veterans had advantage. So not only did Todd have the benefit of being first with the Johnson product family, he was an innovator in adding them to the GSA schedule.
Wow, that's powerful. About how long ago was that? What?
Sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good.
What was the question?
I said about how long ago was that?
Okay, that was before my daughter was born, so it was about 20 years ago. Yeah, she's at American University sophomore now. Yeah.
Wow, man. So 20 years ago, this initiative that started, and you credit him for essentially, well, you guys in combination paved the way for these joint venture efforts, and being pioneer and trailblazers. You got the first product, a Johnson product on the GSA schedule. That's correct.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, I mean, you have to appreciate the early days of disabled veteran joint venturing. It was an anomaly, right? You're talking about a acquisition community that is still large business centric, and so the idea that the contracting community was going to trust disabled veteran joint ventures, oh man, the number of rooms I got laughed out of, right? And so Todd was a trailblazer in that he said, Walter, it looks like what you found works, right? The laws and regulations support the stuff that you're saying, so I'm going to give it a try. And the harder he tried, the more successful he got. And at the end of the day, again, he's one of the unsung heroes, because very few people will know that Todd Mulvaney, was the guy that gave Walter the confidence that was necessary to keep moving.
Absolutely. Now, so for it, the You Are Here point right now, do you think the time it was 20 years ago, it pretty much revitalized, like we're in the fountain of youth, just with all the disruptions of almost every other socioeconomic status and programs? It's really just the disabled veteran and veteran population. I want to talk about the National Defense Authorization Act, speaking of veterans, and that goal program for DOD the language not being included in the National Defense Authorization Act on the Senate side. Do you think that we're basically in a fountain of youth? It's a rich time to be a veteran, essentially?
Absolutely. This would be if there was a Renaissance season for disabled veterans, this would be it. Notwithstanding the fact that Congress saw fit to increase the percentage for disabled veteran contracting, which makes this a more robust season. But with the attacks that we're seeing against the other socioeconomic categories, right? The small disadvantaged business community being found persona non grata, and now the audit of the 8A program, those contracts are going to need a home, right? So if you're a disabled veteran, right, you're the only preference that is viable that hasn't been disturbed. The woman-owned contracting community now is getting the jaundice eye look in terms of the potential for fraud, waste, and abuse. And so right now, if you're a disabled veteran that is responsible and responsive, and you've got capability and capacity, I think Mr. Hill said it correctly. the fountain of youth is before you. All you got to do is step in and go get your contract.
Yeah, indeed. So so let's talk about the National Defense Authorization Act. Okay, so the House had officially passed their version of the National Defense Authorization Act, and we're currently waiting for the Senate side. But it didn't include the language for the veteran-owned small business gold standard program for DoD. Are the doors officially closed, or do Senate still have a chance to include that language into the National Defense Authorization Act?
Now, the doors on the FY26 National Defense Authorization Act are closed, right? The House has voted on that, and in conference, I understand from some sources behind the scenes, the Senate didn't see it in their best interest to go ahead and add that provision because of budgetary constraints and concerns. And as a result of that, I am taking on the responsibility of holding the Congress accountable for not doing the right thing by our veterans. And I'll talk a little bit more liberally about that as we continue, because I want to try to do it without emotion.
Understood. Okay, so in plain English, Mr. Cotton, does this National Defense Authorization Act actually put more money into the veteran economy, or just into the massive defense corporations?
Well, the National Defense Authorization Act is designed to make sure that DoD is funded in advance so that we can have the resources necessary to keep the country safe during this season. And I think Gil Scott-Heron said it best when he said the military and the monetary get together whenever they feel it's necessary. We have a combining of the military and the monetary mindsets because we have some economic challenges we need to recover from, right? We have an economic downturn. We have some inflationary pressures that are underway. So it's not uncommon for them to do some additional investments in bullets and bombs to stabilize the economy. And so some of the investment that we're seeing from the Defense Authorization Act is going to help the economy. There are dollars in the Defense Authorization Act to help with reshoring of some of the manufacturing assets that we're going to need. There's some language in the Defense Authorization Act to instruct the Secretary of Defense on how he's supposed to use that most liberal $8.2 billion he was given in the Industrial Base Fund. And some of those dollars will be used as a component of the capital stack configuration that will create manufacturing assets throughout the country. So there are billions of dollars in that Defense Authorization Act that are going to help the veteran community. And those dollars are equally going to help the economy at large.
Absolutely. It also included a 3.8 pay raise for the troops, and like you said, it focused on domestic manufacturing. But with inflation, do you believe that 3.8 is justified by the rising cost of goods and services and everything?
Well, I mean, I'm biased. I'm a veteran and I'm impacted by it. I think a grateful nation should have that at 30%, but equitable. I think it may be an equitable number, but the bigger fish that we have to fry are things that are associated with the recruitment deficit that we have in our armed forces. Like when you have an all volunteer force like the one that we have, the willingness of men and women to serve in our nation defense is an important consideration. And some of the things that we're seeing being done to our veteran community is not incentivizing future generations to serve. So drawing the nexus between the actions and behavior of the Congress, the action and behavior of the agencies, and some of the ills that we see in our veteran community, we need to see a direct line drawn there, right? We need to see a clear line drawn between the decision not to make available contracting opportunities for veterans who served, who discharged their duty, but were not injured, to draw a line between that and the rate of suicide that we're seeing within our veteran community is something that we need to do, right? To come up with justification for why we can find the dollars necessary to execute, any campaign, and not find the dollars necessary to make sure that him and her who is executing that campaign is covered. Well, that's incongruent thinking in my mind. And so I think that it's critical that our Congress wake up and finally do the right thing by him and her who served, him and her who bore the battle.
Indeed. Okay, let's pivot now from the DoD, and I want to talk about the VA. So they're talking about, they have plans to cut 35,000 positions from the VA health system. In your opinion, the VA says that these cuts just are unfilled positions from COVID, but when you take 35 potential jobs off the board, doesn't that mean longer wait times for the vets trying to see specialists? Like, doesn't that create a bottleneck in the VA?
It could, right? Or it could create an opportunity for disabled veteran contractors to innovate, right? I like to look at the bottle as being half full, right? So the community care program came out of long wait times at veteran clinics. And that community care program is now funding veteranpreneurs. So I don't think that we always want to just look at the systems, programs, and procedures that the agencies are doing. I think that we want to, as citizen soldiers, right, look at how we can flood in to fill the gap. Like, for example, the idea that you and the small group of people are imagining right now about a veteran disaster response fund, right? Or response network. Mm-hmm. That's an innovative example of how citizen soldiers can proactively engage to put a solution in place that's going to cost effectively support the mission while also making sure that him and her who bore the battle gets a chance to effectively participate in it. So my point, very simply, is that in this season, when you see the atmospheric conditions configuring the way they are to your advantage, as Mr. Hill asked a little bit earlier, you as a disabled veteran need to get your feces amalgamated so you could take maximum advantage of the opportunities that are coming out of the change that's resulting from this fountain of youth.
Okay, when you say veterans getting together, so for healthcare, for instance, you're saying that that's a potential opportunity for like contractors to take on the role, have healthcare practices to essentially step into that gap that remove the employees, or is it being innovative and creating AI? So my thought was, okay, if they cut in 35,000 individuals, maybe it's their process of integrating AI into it and making it more AI driven. But you're suggesting that the gap is just the opportunity for us veterans to take control of that narrative and us control everything or run it.
Absolutely. Wayne Dyer, who's a philosopher that I enjoyed listening to, God rest his soul, used to have this quote that went something like, if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change, right? And so the current economic configuration in the relationship between the agency and the contractor has a profit equation. It has a profit margin connected to it that's driven by the industry. No one has taken a look at that profit margin and said, is it fair? Right? Could it be done more effectively? No one from industry has done that. This is where citizen soldiers can get into that environment and look at things differently, like we're looking at this national disaster response network, and say, you know what, if we proactively plan in advance of the event, we can have pre-staged resources that we have a dependable understanding of what their costs are and their application against the environment or against the event. And therefore, we can normalize the cost as opposed to having all of these spikes. So all I'm very simply saying to the contractor community, wake up, listen to the messages that are coming from your customer. Secretary Hegseth had a major conference where he said to industry, if you innovate in advance of the need, we will reward you. And I'm saying to our small business owners that we can innovate too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay. Now I want to talk about this, the 8A audit and the letter from Senator Ernest. Mr. Cotton, is this new wave of audits and mandatory certification, is this a good thing that cleans out the fraudsters, or is this more of a more red tape for the small businesses and making it more complicated?
This is an event that the powers that be, especially the opportunists who have been exploiting the 8A program, would have bet their life's money never would have occurred. They would have bet there would have never been a wholesale audit of the 8A program, but it's here. And I am going to say this, I'm going to go on the record and say they are going to find so much fraud, waste, and abuse in that program. And I'm not usually one that's forward leaning with this kind of message, but I'm going to call this one the way it is. They're going to find so much fraud, waste, and abuse in that program that they're going to have to reimagine that program in order to make sure that the stakeholders, the ones that are reliant on that program, have the ability for continuation, succession, and sustainment. And what I'm speaking of in that instance are the citizens of the villages that the tribes support, who utilize the 8A program to acquire resources that go back to the tribe to ultimately deliver the sustainable needs, healthcare, and the like. We're going to have to come up with a program to subsidize that action as they disrupt that earning or that income stream as a result of this 8A activity. So very simply put, this is a very challenged time for those organizations that are in the 8A program. And if you are smart money, right, you are a disabled veteran, what you're doing is you're becoming a bigger disabled veteran small business, because as these agencies are affected by this issue, they're going to be looking for a safe harbor. And the FAR rewrite created very few safe harbors for 8A contracts that are being moved. One of them is the existing socioeconomic programs. Let me say that another way. The FAR rewrite simply said that if you have an 8A contract, you can now take that contract out of the 8A program and move it to another program as long as it's one of the existing socioeconomic programs. I'm suggesting that, and I'm stating that here because I believe that that's going to be a point of contention as this thing moves forward. And it's going to be a point of contention. I'm just going to finish this thought, please. Let me finish it. It's going to be a point of contention moving forward, because this disruption is going to cause people to have an urgent and compelling need to move stuff around. And if they move it in violation of that statute that says you can only move it to one of the other socioeconomic programs, that's going to open the door to protest. And those protests are going to slow the system down. And so the mission will suffer. So my concern is that this benign audit has the potential to disrupt things in a significant fashion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, the article said it was 4,300 letters sent out in the 8A program. Now, let's say that 20% of that, 20% of those organizations have some fraud, waste, and abuse. How, from your perspective, how significant would that damage the federal contracting landscape and our national security, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, let me be clear about the fact that we're not talking about all nefarious actors, right? Some of this stuff that's going to be labeled as a violation of statute or violation of law is going to be errors that people have made, oversights that individuals have made that just fall into that category. So, the 20% figure, I think, is a little bit low. But what was the question? Because I wanted to make sure that I said that everything that's going to come out of this isn't going to be people trying to defraud the government. It's going to be some people making just business errors. But what was your question?
Yes, the question was, out of the 4,300 companies that got the letter sent out to them, how, from your perspective, how much damage would it do to the federal contracting landscape and our national security?
Well, I think it's going to do a lot of damage to the federal contracting landscape, because the ability to be agreement capable is going to come into question, right? You know, how many bad actors we have on the contracting side of the equation is going to become evident, and that's going to call into question whether or not we have the level of trust that's required for that financial system. And those kinds of considerations is going to cause the need to pause, to slow things down. And we're not in a position right now, from a geopolitical, from an economic perspective, we're not in a position to be slowing shit down, right? So it's going to create the kind of need for us to do something that's other than associated with the tyranny of incrementalism. And the tyranny of incrementalism is a theory that says that when you have a dynamic change that's required, incremental shifts and adjustments are not the optimum approach towards getting yourself to that dynamic outcome.
Okay, so for the 8A program existence, just in general, we understand that it's a statute, it's Small Business Act, 8A. Do you see this being something that's brung up in the midterms that could eliminate the program potentially?
You know, I honestly believe that we are at the place that we were in 1994, 1995, 1996, that ultimately led to the reauthorization of SBA, right? In 1997, they did a reauthorization of SBA where they took the program, they opened the hood, and they did a wholesale look at all of the programs and reordered and reorganized the number of the programs. And as a matter of fact, it was that 1997 reauthorization that created things like VetForce and the foundation of what ultimately produced Public Law 10650. So I think that what we are ultimately leaning towards, what we're ultimately in need of, is a wholesale reauthorization of the SBA, where we look at all of these programs, we look at the data that we've gotten from them, and we design a new set of programs that meet the needs of today's economy.
Yes, sir. Indeed, indeed. So for the individuals, the veterans, or any small businesses that, want to reproduce the results of your client zero, how can they get involved?
Well, I apologize for being disheveled. I'm dealing with the mourning that's associated with my client zero, and now I'm not going to apologize. I'm just doing what I would do for a friend. But I am taking on the role of building out the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Network New York chapter. And the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Network was the first business-focused VSO, right? And so I'm going through the process of revitalizing that. I'm going to need some help. So you guys can join me, right? Take a look at that URL that's surfing across the screen there. Go out there and join the network, become a member, become a part of the board, help me produce that $50 billion FY 2026 outcome that we're delivering.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as always, Mr. Cotton, thank you for your time and your wisdom and your guidance. Guys, catch us next on the next round of My Patriot Report Live. I'm Ratwan Hill, and that is Mr. Walter Cotton III. Until next time, guys, we are out.